Dang, that's a good looking rig. Too bad it's about to lose its front bumper. Hello, and welcome to J Designs. Today, major modifications to the truck commence. In this video, I'll be pulling the front bumper and building a front hitch for a remote mount winch. Now I know what you're thinking. Who in their right mind would pull the front bumper off of otherwise completely stock truck? Yeah, well, first off, I'm not in my right mind. Secondly, a good reason to pull the front bumper off is so I can mount that front hitch that I showed you. Another reason to pull the front bumper off is to save about 25 pounds off the front of the truck. It's not a ton, but I think it's a significant amount. Another reason to remove the front bumper is for better approach angle. Notice how the area is all nice and open now? So if I want to climb an obstacle with the truck, the tire can grab onto the obstacle rather than the body. For those that don't know, approach angle is just a measure of how big of an obstacle the front of the truck can climb up. By removing the front bumper, the approach angle has been improved by about 5 degrees. Now, I'm not going to show how to pull the front bumper. That's because it's pretty easy. All you got to do is pull the grill, and then there's less than probably 20 fasteners to pull the front bumper off. If you can turn a wrench, you can do it. Now that I've removed the front bumper, the next step is to pull this front cross structure here. It's very simple. There's just 2 bolts on this side, 1 on that side, and then 3 more on the other side of the truck. And then the cross structure just comes right off. Or, well, sort of. You get the idea. Now the next step is the only irreversible process of the whole bumper delete thing I'm doing, and that is to remove these fender liners. Just cut them with scissors. It's not hard. I don't think I've ever said it before, but this truck is only about a year old to me. The truck's a 2012, but I haven't had it that long, and we're already hacking the fenders off of her. Aren't you glad you're watching me do this instead of hacking your own truck apart? There we go, gone forever. Now, if I ever want to revert this truck back to stock, it wouldn't be too hard. I'd just cut a little piece of plastic or a little strip of metal and put it on here and then rivet it back in place. So essentially riveting the 2 halves back together. I guess zip ties could also be used, but they don't provide the same clamp load that rivets or bolting it back together would provide. These little guys right here, which I'm pretty sure are something for cross structure, they just bolt into this frame horn right here, and I'm gonna need that bolt hole. I'm gonna go ahead and delete these. If you're doing an off-road build, it would be advantageous to delete that guy, because then you get more clearance for obstacles that are coming towards your tire and stuff like that. We can go ahead and add that to the weight reduction tally. So weighing all the components, the front bumper with fog lights installed, the fender liner, aluminum cross structure, the 2 frame horns, and the other fender liner, the grand total weight reduction is just about 26 pounds. So now with everything pulled off, what do you think? I really love how the suspension is completely exposed there. There's plenty of room for activities. And now the next step is to go connect these parts right here with a fabricated front hitch. So I just wanted to cover all the materials I'm going to be using and where I'm going to place everything on this front hitch build. The core of the hitch is going to be made out of this guy. It's a pre-made hitch piece. It's got a little bit better fitment inside of the hitch that's designed for a 2-inch hitch receiver components, and then the hitch pin is a little bit bigger than 5/8, so the pin fits in there really nicely. This is going to be the core of the hitch, and it's going to go about right here and be in between these 2 bolt points where the studs come out of the frame. And then the rest of the hitch is going to be made out of this 2.5-inch quarter wall square tube. This and the 3/16 plate that I'm going to be using to fabricate everything out of is the same material that the factory Toyota hitch uses. And then everything else, the gussets, this is going to cap the end of that 2.5-inch tube. All that's going to be made out of 3/16 plate, and I'll do some runners that shoot down here to pick up on another bolt, and that'll be made out of 1/8-inch plate. So I'm going to start this build off at the chop saw here. All I'm going to do is cut 2 equal length pieces out of this square tube. And after that, the next step is to weld them to the central hitch piece. Flip her over quickly so we don't get too much deflection. Once that's done, I'm gonna mark 45-degree angles into the square tube and then cut those off with the angle grinder and clean those cuts up with the bench grinder. Once those 55-degree angles are done, the next step is to mark and center punch hole locations for the first bolt holes that are going to go in this front hitch. Alright, so the hole for the stud to pass through is right here. Now what we need to do is we got to get this bolt to be able to pass through from the front side. So what I'm going to do is hole saw out this front side. And you can see I've already started on it, but now you can watch me finish it. So that's not the prettiest hole in the world, but as you can see, the bolt fits through there perfectly fine. And now we can access the hole on the other side. This will get capped with a little piece, so we're not getting water inside the tube there. So got a piece of cardboard, got some scissors. We're at the front of the truck here. I'm going to make a little template out of cardboard that will then transfer over to steel, and we'll make this 3/16 side plug here that picks up on these two studs. And there we go, rough template for me to go transfer over to steel, and we'll weld her on. So you're back in my garage now. I got my little template here, but I just wanted to cover something real quick of how nice it is to have one of these little fanny packs here. On this little pack, I carry a little measuring tape. I was like a thick pin, a thin pin, a ruler, and a nice 90-degree angle that's adjustable, and also a metal thickness gauge, and it just slots right into the pocket there. And it's great because I don't have to constantly keep coming back to the workbench to find my measuring devices or my marking things or anything I need super quickly. If you're somebody that works in the workshop a lot, I would highly recommend getting this, or like an apron or something like that. I have an apron too, but I far prefer my little fanny pack. I don't know, if you're wondering what this little fuzzy thing is, that's my mic. That's how I'm talking to you. So now that I have these two 3/16 side plates, I'm actually going to weld them together. Welding them together will make it so they don't have to measure, mark, center punch, and drill 4 holes. This way I only need to do 2 holes. The 3/16 side plates will get drilled out in 3 different drill bit sizes. We're going to start with the little one, go to a small one, and then finally step up to 1/2 inch. And that's why I need a vise for the drill press. Alright, so I got those blinking plates ground apart. They are bolted onto the truck, as you can see. And we're going to go ahead and weld them in place on the truck. That just ensures that they don't move or anything like that, so all the holes line up. And the blinking plates will go on in a little bit. They don't need to be on the chassis while I'm welding them. So an important thing to do when we're going to weld on the chassis of the truck is to disconnect the battery. The reason why I want to do that is so the electricity from the weld isn't flowing through the electrical system of the truck, and that way we don't burn out any wires, short the ECU, something like that, or any of our accessories that I've added onto this truck over the year I've had it. Here she is, just 3 little tack welds. That should be all we need. Just let those cool off. And we've got the starts of a front hitch. So now that those tack welds have cooled, I'm going to take the whole hitch over to the workbench and do some welding there. On this step, I'm adding in the end plates that cap off the square tube. All right, so the front hitch is nearing the end of its build process. Yesterday I finished all the final welding on the entire bumper, and also I built cardboard templates. The first one is just gusset plates here. These just tie in, there's two of them. These just tie in these two main studs to the main tube, and I'll get those tacked up. The other thing I built was this little brace plate that's going to go on the bottom of the hitch down here and essentially just add more welds to tie it in and make it a little stronger. After I'm done tacking those in, I'll go and make some more plates and gussets that come down here and pick up on another bolt hole here for a little bit more strength. And lastly, it's not necessary, but there's a little gap right here under the radiator, and I'm going to go in and build a plate that just kind of acts like an air dam to stop air from flowing into the engine bay. The air that flows in here underneath this does not go into the radiator. It's not necessary to block this off, but I want to block it off. Let me take it to the whiteboard to explain why I want that blocked off. So I'm going to show you why I want to block off the air dam here. So this is a diagram of kind of what the truck looks like. This is the radiator, and blue is the front hitch, and this is where the air is just passing into the engine bay and not going into the radiator. Now when air passes through the radiator, it has to go through the radiator and then either spills out into the fender well or has to pass around the skid plates and just pass underneath the truck. There's only so much air that can spill into the fender well or pass into the truck at any given time. So if we go in and eliminate this air here by creating an air dam, just right there, then essentially the air that passes through the radiator will have an easier time getting out of the engine bay and therefore improving the efficiency of the radiator. We are at the front of the truck now. I got these little plates that go right here. That guy goes there, and then the brackets go on there as well. I'm going to bolt them in, and then we'll tack weld them in place. So I'm in the middle of fabbing up the front hitch now, and I got a call from a friend, and I'm going to go help him out. Anyways, this thing is going to go on its maiden voyage just like this. Everything's still tack welded on. I don't think anything's going to fall off. It's pretty on there, but don't worry, I'll be back. We'll finish it. So the hitch is off of the truck for the first time today. I'm ready to go ahead and weld all these in here. I could just go weld these just how they are, but it's important to note that when you weld stuff, that the metal's always subject to kind of bending from the heat. So for example, if we have a 90-degree angle like we have in here, that 90-degree angle is going to want to close up. And the reason why that's an issue is this plate that's in here, that's a 90 degree, is going to be tighter than 90 degrees. So this plate right here won't be flat to the frame anymore. So what I'm going to do to remedy that is I'm going to take the hitch, I'm actually just going to tack weld it to the table in various points so that this plate right here and this one as well stays completely flat. They don't start to deform, and then they're not flat to the frame of the truck. And then when we're done welding, we'll just cut the tack welds, and we'll wait for it to cool first, then cut the tack welds. That's important. So here is the welding setup. Now I've got it clamped to the table. One clamp there, one clamp there. Let's go ahead and tack weld it down, and we'll start welding. So I thought this looked kind of funny. This is the front hitch. This side is still tacked on the table. We're waiting for that side to cool down, and we'll finish that one. But that's what it looks like in the meantime. I gotta duck under it every time I need to go past the workbench because I got all my other stuff here, welders and whatnot. There's a cat. Let's cut these tack welds off, see if she worked. There we go. Took long enough. Got the blinking plate all marked up and cut out. These sections here are going to get removed. The X's are for the holes, and then this part here is just going to get bent up like that. And this is the actual air dam portion here. So let's cut it out. And there we go. That's what she's going to look like. The last bit is center punch these, bend them out, and drill the holes. Then we just got to drill and tap the hitch, and that should be it. So weighing the two front air dam components, that's 13 grams. That's like 2/3 of a pound or something like that. Super lightweight. I consider every gram that goes on this truck. Oh, and by gram I don't mean Instagram. I mean unit of measuring weight, or mass grams. But speaking of the gram, follow me at oak_taco if you want to follow this build. Oh, and oh yeah, one more thing. Welding the aluminum air dams, I'm going to start off with a MIG welder. The MIG welder is much easier to use. It's just kind of point and shoot, but it doesn't produce very pretty welds. So for the final welds, I'm going to go back in with the TIG welder. TIG welding is a lot harder than MIG welding, but you have a lot more control, and therefore I can make prettier welds. The next part of working on the front air dam is just clearancing it for this factory front tow hook. I'm going to start with a small drill bit and then finish it out with a big hole saw. The next step is to cut the holes, and then after that I'll clean it up with a die grinder. And here is the air dam held up to the truck. It's pretty good fitment. So in the next step here, I need to bolt the air dam up to the bottom of the hitch. So I'm using a drill tap combo to cut threads into the bottom of the hitch so you can bolt it up. You'll see that I get about 4 holes before this drill tap breaks, and then I go back to just tapping threads by hand. Look at them welds. Bootyful. Not beautiful. Bootyful. Anyways, here's the front hitch, almost completed. The last couple things I gotta do is plug that hole. I'll probably do it with aluminum to keep the environment out of the inside of this tube. And then after that, we're gonna trim a bit of fat off of her. There's a bit of unnecessary material on here. And then clean the rust that's formed over about the week that I've been working on it. And then prep for paint. And after that, we can see the finished product on the front of the truck. I'm super excited for that. I hope you are. So without further ado, let's get to it. So prepping for paint here, all I'm going to do is use a bit of brake clean to knock off any oils that may be on there. The next step after that is to galvanize it, and then I let it sit overnight. Since I let it sit overnight, I'm just going to blow it off with a bit of compressed air, and after that, paint it black. I did not build a front recovery point into this truck, so what I'm going to use for that is one of these flat links that either accepts a soft shackle or a D-ring, and that will allow me to rig up to whatever I need to. When I need to mount a winch in here and do a double line pull, the winch line will come out right here and then return to the truck via one of these 2 front hook points. Also, in the near future, I will be building a crash structure right here that will also have something to protect the radiator here. That front crash structure will serve to protect either this guy or the frame in the event of a crash. The front hitch fully built and painted. She only weighs 20 pounds. So I hope you enjoyed that build. I wanted to talk to you about why I fabricated a front hitch instead of building or buying a front bumper. The first reason is cost. Some of those front bumpers can cost as much as $1,200. The front hitch probably costed me $100, somewhere around there. The second reason is weight. Weight adversely affects a vehicle in acceleration, braking, cornering abilities, vehicle response, fuel economy, and more. I understand my truck is not a sports car, but I'm someone who enjoys dynamic driving, and weight just dilutes that experience.
Woo! Love that.
So the third reason why I don't want to mount a big heavy front bumper to this truck is because, quite frankly, a big heavy front bumper is just not in the weight budget for the build that I want to do for this truck. The GVW, or gross vehicle weight rating, for this truck is 5,500 pounds. As this truck sits right now, it's 4,200 pounds. So you deduct those two numbers from each other, and the leftover weight is 1,300 pounds. That is the most weight I can add to this thing and legally roll down the road with it. I have a lot planned for this truck, and you're going to see it all on this channel. In the future, I'm going to be doing skid plates, rock sliders. I'll do a rear bumper build, and I'm also going to build a flatbed for it. And most notably, on that flatbed, I'm going to build a camper. All that stuff is going to add a lot of weight. Speaking of that camper, it's really hot where I live. It's regularly over 90 degrees and humid. So that camper is going to have air conditioning, and I want to be able to run that air conditioning remotely. So that means I need a lot of solar and I need a lot of battery. I'm going to be running 4 heavy batteries. Each battery weighs about 25 pounds, so that's 400 pounds just in battery. Also, I want at least 20 gallons of fresh water in that camper. 20 gallons of fresh water weighs 160 pounds. So deduct all that from the 1,300 pounds, and I'm pretty sure there's not going to be a whole lot left. So that's why I'm so conscious with weight on this build, and why I'm super happy that that front hitch only weighs 20 pounds, 6 pounds lighter than the factory setup. And I'm super happy I kept this shirt completely white through that intro and the outro. With that, let me know what you think of this. Am I crazy for pulling the front bumper off? Does it look good? Does it look bad? Would you pull the front bumper off your own vehicle? Let me know. I'm Jay. You've been watching Jay Designs. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Next week, I'm going to be doing a winch plate build. And then, once that's done, we're going to go take this and test it before it ever goes out in the field and actually gets used. Stay tuned for that. Follow along with the build at oak_taco on Instagram. I don't want excessive weight diluting that experience. Don't act like you didn't do Zoom calls in your boxers.